Then go ahead and hold until the end. And thank you so much for being here. So without further ado, I'm Kelsey Parks. My business partner, Kate Ishay, is also here and will be taking over the presentation in a few slides here. But we are the co-founders of Psyche Digital, a digital creative agency for growth stage startups, founders, venture capital, and all of the support networks that make innovation possible in our amazing space. We handle 4 organizations in the growth stage: strategic branding and messaging. We create tactical, scalable websites. And we also handle ongoing authority building, marketing, and content strategy. I am hearing some dings. Are there any questions coming up, Kate?
I'm letting them in, Kelsey. I'm managing the chat.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Awesome. So that's who we are. But what we're covering today is we're going to be talking about AI search and the future of searchability and findability as we see it. So we're going to start by talking about how these things are changing. We'll talk a bit about traditional SEO strategies and which ones still work and which ones need a little modification in your strategy. We'll talk about EEAT, which you might have heard of before, but we're going to really lay that out in clear terminology and talk a bit about a guided strategy that can help create wins in AI search. And then we'll really dig into an action plan in our perception of some of the key activities you can be doing to make wins in the short and long term for your business or your organization. So without further ado, the first section here is how searchability and findability are changing. So you've seen it as business owners, you've seen it as individuals utilizing Google search. There has been some major technology changes on our favorite platforms. And there are new platforms that many folks are starting to really love to utilize for search, like ChatGPT, like Perplexity. We're seeing these tools evolve right before our eyes and very rapidly. When we're talking about AI search, what it is ultimately driving towards is providing the answers when a question is posed or when an inquiry is made. So what that typically would result in is folks are receiving their answer in the space where the search is occurring, and they may not be, like in the past, clicking through to content to sift through that content, identify the answer. So that's a big shift in content. It's a big shift in the way we utilize the internet. And we're looking at a future in which clicks are only occurring for very specific, intentful questions. In this new space, there's some data around how it's working. So search answers are being pulled from 5 to 8 sources per result. Typically, hundreds, in some cases thousands, of sources are scanned before providing that result. We are seeing a 32% drop in the top results click-through rates since the AI Overview rollout. And AI Overview was rolled out in May of 2024, and then it was rolled out further outside of North America in May of 2025. So now there's a larger presence across the globe of that solution. So 32% fewer overall clicks since the introduction of these conversational answers. And we're seeing that since the release of these kinds of solutions, that trust has grown as well. So 70% of users say that they do trust generative AI answers, at least somewhat, right? So that indicates that folks are reading them, still being critical about them, but there is some trust being built there. And the hallucinations that we've come to be familiar with are becoming less and less, and that's the perception of users. Just to speak a little bit to that acceleration of adoption since January 2025, where there was 6.49% of all queries on Google serving AI overview answers. By March of this year, just 2 months later, there were 13.14% of all queries triggering AI overviews. And that has rapidly increased, which you can see as you are utilizing Google. More and more queries are producing AI overview results. So that's kind of the nutshell of what has been happening and the trends of where things are going. As a marketing agency, we really started to see this year. So we saw in December of 2024 a big rollout of a Google algorithm shift that resulted in a massive shift in the keywords that our clients' websites were ranking for, probably the largest since we had started taking on SEO as an in-house solution. And that was really surprising. We, of course, dug in, started employing different tactics to create changes and gains for our clients since that algorithm shift. And then something really interesting happened. So around April and May of this year, we became aware of the release of AI mode in Google. We also saw that AI overview pushed out to other countries. And all of a sudden, some of our clients, their SEO landscape shifted for the better. They had accelerated visibility, even saw an increase in organic click-throughs from searches, and the keywords and the queries that they were popping up in results for expanded. And we were really interested in this. So some of our clients saw this advantage with the shift in the AI search accessibility, and some did not. So we wanted to take a look at what caused this, right? And kind of reverse engineer what we thought was happening, what these clients had in common that were creating wins in AI search. And you can see each of these clients being featured as top results in searches for specific queries across AI search tools. So what we identified, the difference between some of our clients who took a hit and some of our clients who were suddenly presented with an advantage, was that the clients who had the advantage were building context through the content that they were creating. So really thinking about their content strategy, there were key differences in the way that they treated their website, in the way that they treated their content creation. So some of the businesses that we serve, they have different goals that may be benefited by being findable in search, or maybe not. It obviously always depends on the audience. But if your audience are those who may be finding you through search, it would benefit you to think about your website not just as a brochure, that your website is clearly and in detail addressing buyer questions, that it is providing deep information on your solutions, that it is demonstrating the expertise of your team, your offer, the technology that you're leveraging, that you're providing proof of trustworthiness, social proof, testimonials, case studies, that you're demonstrating you are understanding and addressing the intent of your ideal audience, like what are their goals and key objectives, and that you are telling your story throughout your content landscape. So building that web of connected stories on different pages and through different pieces of content. So this all ties into content strategy, and we'll be circling to that in more depth later in this presentation. But the key word here is context. So building relationships between information that you are making available through your channels. So the way AI search works is it uses artificial intelligence to go beyond simple keyword matching all the way to understanding user intent and the context of those questions. So it's really working on connecting the dots, right? For those interested, it's using techniques like the natural language processing and machine learning to analyze queries that are coming in, to consider the context of those queries through other queries that have occurred with that user and other like users. And then really the goal is to provide more relevant and personalized results. So when we're talking about winning with AI search, we're really talking about adding to the conversation so that you are part of it as these conversations are taking place.
Kelsey, Lori has a question.
Yeah, this is all great information. Can you give me like an exact example? Like using anybody that you might know, like what is this type of context and how it would search and find it and your answer to it?
Yeah, totally. I'll go back to the slide here that shows some of the wins that we've seen. So for example, and this is tied into like long form content or the website pages that you have developed that are being cited by the results. So for example, King Energy, when you type in commercial solar panel cleaning, their blog article titled Facts on Commercial Solar Panel Cleaning is one of the first results that is cited for the AI overview result. For United Pipeline, which is a pipeline liner solutions company, HDPE pipeliner, if an engineer is typing in that technology, their guide about HDPE pipeline lining is the top result. So it's being cited, and then their logo and their brand name is right there at the very top next to what a user is reading. This is an example from ChatGPT. So for KND Labs, which is an ingredients manufacturer, when someone is inquiring about CBN distillate, the information about what CBN distillate is actually linking to a product page about their CBN distillate as a source of information that they're citing to give that answer. Does that answer the question?
Yes. I'm sorry if I missed that earlier, but yes, it does.
No, that's a great question. And I think I could have benefited to give more context to you guys. That's great. Yeah, and I mean, in a nutshell, right, when we're talking about context, that is what AI search needs, but it's also what humans need to understand something, to make decisions, and to form opinions about matters as well, right? So they're really moving the technology more into a realm of how human decision-making works. So the activities that you take to help a person that you want to talk to make better decisions for themselves is, in a shortcut, very potential to support your AI search visibility as well, right? So you're making content for humans, you're making content for the algorithm, because the thought processes are aligning more closely than ever in the past. So with all of that, if we're talking about the trends moving away from folks clicking into long form ultimate guide articles and actually search results providing summarized answers of questions that folks have or inquiries that people are making, what strategies are going to work for your search engine optimization moving forward? So very quickly, to just make clarity here, SEO means search engine optimization, and it refers to the process of optimizing your content that's published, whether that be written content, video, image, or even the structure of the content that you have in place, making that more easily understandable to search engines. right? And as search engines are changing, the ways they understand published content is changing too. So we're going to talk a bit about how to optimize the content for search engines. So I wanted to first share kind of our standard hierarchy of SEO needs. This was produced by Moz, which is a majorly important voice in the space of SEO. And this is their hierarchy pyramid, which starts with the base of essential SEO tasks and moves upward towards the more competitive SEO tasks. And we always advise folks to start, of course, with the base work. And as you become more sophisticated, move up into the higher echelons of competitive tactics. But a lot of this actually in the shifts for AI search remains the same. However, there are some things that are a little different. The things that are no longer working is having a focus on keywords. So for those of you who have been creating content or focused on creating an offer or being findable in the past, you probably know that in the early aughts and 2010s, if you were using the words of a search, you were more likely to show up in search results, right? That is shifting. So, stuffing keywords, using the keyword in every header is no longer a tactic that is being given an advantage in AI search. Generic blog content is also no longer giving an advantage. Thin product and service pages, you try and keep it all very succinct or very smoke and mirrors, are not working any longer. If you are ignoring your technical hygiene on your website, mobile optimization, your accessibility, performance, all of that, that is a larger penalty than it was in the past. And now a very interesting shift that has been happening over the last decade, but is accelerating a lot right now, is publishing only on your own website. Is not working as much as it used to before. So what is working is focusing on intent. So thinking and putting yourself in the shoes of a person asking a question that you might be writing content for, and thinking deeply about what their ideal outcome is from asking this question. What is the answer that they're needing? And what's the context that they need to understand and make decisions and form opinions around whatever topic it is that you're using. So less about the actual words that you're using and more about the content chunks and the context chunks that you are putting out in front of them and out published online. Other things that are working is expert insights from your team, original research or original point of views. So this ties into adding to the conversation and adding more context to conversations that are happening. And we'll speak a little bit more about what that means and some ways you can leverage that later in this presentation. Still having headlines and metadata and internal linking and schema markup. And these are tied to the technical hygiene of your website or your content, but making sure that all of those things are contextual as well. So you're building webs of context between information that you're writing about or speaking about or publishing online. And I reach this out beyond website because the multi-format reuse is becoming more and more important for successful AI search presence. In the biz, we call that search everywhere optimization, but really ensuring that your materials are findable and connectable across other channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Reddit, Wikipedia, Quora, and wherever you are establishing more credibility and authority outside of your website. So yeah, the modern SEO, it ties in trust and structure and, very importantly, the actual substance of the content that you're putting out. So a little modification to this hierarchy of SEO needs. A lot of this stays the same, but the big thing is that keyword optimized content now needs to be context optimized content for success in AI search. But making sure that it's published and able to be seen by search engines is the most important. Ensuring that it's compelling to the actual people that you're wanting to connect with is the second most important. And only then do you really need to worry heavily about making sure that the content is optimized for that contextual understanding. And then beyond that, we're talking about great user experience on your website, making the content share-worthy or cite-worthy from other sources, making sure technically your structure and metadata is very strong. And then at the very top, if you want to go above and beyond, schema markup, which is actually code-based inside the content to help make shortcuts for the search engines who are understanding the information that you're putting out there. So a lot of great stuff, and really only one major shift at this moment. So really, what, in a nutshell, what brands who are winning in AI search are doing is they're focusing on their visibility, so getting their unique point of views out there, establishing credibility, being trustworthy and demonstrably so in the space, and then establishing authority through expertise and having a voice in the conversations that are happening beyond your own website. So some basic things to start thinking about is sharing clear, expert-backed content, getting cited across trusted sources and other online sources than your own website, and then on your website, having strong site architecture and metadata that helps build context for search engines. So instead of just optimizing for keywords like you would have in traditional SEO strategy, you want to be thinking, am I credible enough to be the answer? And am I actually giving that answer through my content somewhere? Or in the ideal cases, in multiple places to be seen as that authority. So we're going to dive in a bit into some actual framework that you can use to help guide your content strategy. And I'm going to hand it to Kate for this next part.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kelsey has given some great context about the shift that's happening, what we're seeing, the direction all of that is moving. Oh, and Kelsey, you want to push that back into slideshow?
I'm just muting myself.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about how we strategically make that shift so that you can actually move the needle to get your company showing up in those AI searches, in those search engine rankings, all of that. So if you'll go to the next slide, Kelsey, the foundation of this is something that Kelsey mentioned before, which is EEAT. EEAT stands for experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. And this is a framework that Google and other AI systems are using to determine who deserves to be featured in search results and AI summaries. The idea behind this framework is that it's not just about what you're saying, it's about who's saying it and why they're qualified to speak on that topic. So again, going into that context. The funny thing is the system's actually not new. It was introduced by Google in 2014 and has been used to help identify search engine rankings up to this point. But with this big shift, it's become 10 times more important. It's become the focus of your content strategy. That's all because the goal of an AI-powered search environment is to serve users real insight, not just this surface level content. Everything that is served is being based on the context that's provided, and this framework is what helps Google and AI systems identify if that context is there. So when we're talking about experience, we're talking about, have you personally done or used what you're writing about? When we're talking about expertise, do you have knowledge or credentials in this topic? If you're talking about health and wellness, do you actually have a certification to be talking about this health and wellness topic? Authority, do others trust you? Are you getting cited in other websites? Are you being viewed as an expert by your peers? And trustworthiness, is your content accurate? Is it, if it's a well-known fact, are you using the right fact? Is it transparent? Are you citing your sources? And is it unbiased? Leora, I see there's a question there.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I know that I asked this question and you're answering it right now, but I still feel like stuff like experience and expertise is really subjective. I could at any point in my website just be like, I am an expert in dog wrangling. I don't own a dog. I've never owned a dog. So is AI pulling from multiple sources about you? Presumably it's pulling from multiple sources about you on the internet to corroborate what you're saying on your website. Like, how are these things actually established? Like, 'cause I just feel like we could say anything.
No, absolutely. And that is a problem. It is, when you're talking about the search engine rankings, going back to that very first fact and figure that Kelsey shared, all of these queries, especially in the AI overviews, are being pulled from 6 to 8 sources when you get an answer. So it is going across all of these multiple sources to make sure what you're saying is correct. And there's all of these identifiers that we can put in our content that help the AI and Google and all of these search engines build that context to know that you know what you're talking about. Kelsey, if you switch to the next slide, please.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing in regard to your question also, Leora. So the framing of EEAT, they have intentionally made it extremely difficult to game Google with the technology that they're using. So in fact, anytime you are watching an interview with someone who's hands-on in the Google algorithm, they will unanimously say EEAT is a guiding framework for business owners, but the cues are being pulled in a way that is not linear across just a single piece of content. So optimizing your content for EEAT, you really need to be thinking about it as a holistic exercise for your whole business for it to create gains. So that's just another way to think about it. If that's helpful.
Awesome. If you'll switch the next slide, let's start talking about how we do that demonstration of each of those different things. Because like Kelsey said, it is hard to game Google, but if you actually have the knowledge, you have the expertise, you have all of those pieces, you can put these signals in your content to help you rank better. So, and I do know a lot of businesses assume that this kind of work is for big brands with big budgets. That's not really true. Organizations, growth stage, early stage, wherever you are, you already actually have the raw materials to demonstrate EEAT. You just need to be strategic in how you present your content and how you are presenting to the robots, to AI, that you know what you're talking about. So breaking it down, if we are talking about experience, this is all about showing that you have lived the problem that you are solving. So this could be a founder sharing their story. It could be a case study walking through a customer transformation. It could even be your own product development journey, but basically you are just thinking about real stories, not generic advice. Showing that you have lived this experience, or you have been through this experience, or you have helped people through this experience. That is going to trigger that tag for Google. If we're talking about expertise, this is all about showing you know what you're talking about. So that means putting real names and bios on your content. If you have a blog, don't just have the byline as Psyche Digital team. Have it as Kelsey Parks, expert in SEO. something along those lines that triggers to Google that you know what you're talking about. And then link that to a broader bio on your website that gives some context for that background. That also means that you could bring in guest contributors when it makes sense. You could also highlight relevant certifications or any other deep knowledge that your team brings. So there's lots of different ways to trigger that expertise tag. Authoritativeness. This a lot of times is third-party validation. Are other people pointing to you as a trusted site, a trusted source? So that could be customer testimonials, that could be media mentions, that could be a guest podcast appearance that links back to your site, backlinks of any kind from a trusted resource in your space pointing back to you. That's all showing that authority. Other people in your market, in your space, look at you as an authority. Trustworthiness. This is very foundational. Hopefully all of you are communicating trust in everything you do. You're avoiding vague claims. You're avoiding fake reviews. With this one, it's all about being transparent about who you are, how you price, where your data comes from. If you're using a statistic on your website, cite that source and make sure it's a good source. All of those things are going to help make you look more trustworthy. Please, please, please avoid fake reviews. Avoid bad links from untrusted sites. Avoid those things. That's going to keep you in a good space in terms of trustworthiness. So again, this isn't about being a household name in terms of brand. You don't have to be Apple. You don't have to be Nike. It's all about acting like a credible business and making sure that AI and people that are searching for your services, your products, are able to find that information easily. Okay, next slide. So that was great about content strategy. When you're focusing on your content, what to build, it's all about EEAT. How do you hit all of those markers? When you're working on your website, how do you hit all of those markers? It's a lot. How do you turn that into action? And where do you start with that action? We'll skip to the next slide. So where to start? These 4 actions are not everything you should do, but they're going to lay a foundation for a content strategy that's going to perform in an AI-driven landscape. Now, I will say, if you do not know who your audience is, if you do not know what they need when they are looking for products or services like yours, and if you do not know what you want to be known for, what your goals for your reputation in your space are, then you need to start there. But I'm assuming that all of you already know these things, so I'm not going to dive into how to do your market research and understand who you're looking for. But start there if you haven't done that yet. The first thing you're going to do, and I'm going to dive into each of these actions more deeply, but the first thing you're going to do is audit your site and the content that you currently have. You want to make sure it's credible. You want to make sure it's optimized. And I'll have a checklist about what all of that looks like here on the next slide. Once you've audited your site, you know what's already there. Then you want to start thinking about elevating your internal experts. What do I have to bring to the table to add to the conversation, build that context so that people can find me more easily? This could be interviews, case studies, thought leadership, all of these different things. What do I have available in my business that I can bring to build context? Then, once you've built this big piece of content, whether it's a case study, an interview, whatever that might be, you're going to look at repurposing your big content piece across all of your channels. It's not enough just to house it on your website. You want to start thinking about your digital ecosystem as a whole, your social media, your forums that you're interacting with, places that you are appearing as a guest, all of these different spaces that you can repurpose your content and share it across channels to be more findable. And then finally, once you've done all of these other pieces, you want to start thinking about your technical SEO, your page speed, your mobile optimization, so that if people are searching on their phone, which people are doing more and more, your content is presented nicely there. You want to make sure your metadata is where it should be. So all of those things are going to come together to help you have a great presence in terms of search engine optimization and AI overview. So going into the first bit, auditing your site. There's basically two sides of this. The first one is making sure that you are presenting yourself as a credible resource. So is your content authored by a real expert? You didn't just go and pull someone else's article or blog post from Google. You've actually sat down with your expert and written that content, and you have that tag saying who it was authored by and giving the information that helps Google understand that you have that expertise. So their credentials, whatever that might be, to help them speak to this. Do you include those clear bios and bylines? Are your claims backed by data or other sources? Are you linking out to other websites that are backing the data that you are presenting? And then are customer stories and results featured? Do you have those customer stories on your website? Are the results, that could be product reviews, anything along those lines, are those showing up on your site? It looks like Leora has a question there. Oh, it disappeared. Let me get back there. I know a lot of people are leveraging AI as a copywriter. Would that count as writing it yourself, or is there an additional ranking benefit to hiring a copywriter writing yourself? So you absolutely can use AI, and we use it heavily for copywriting. The big thing is that AI copywriters are not infallible. They make a lot of mistakes. They sound like robots. So yes, use AI to write things. There is currently no penalty for that. But make sure that you edit it heavily. Check every fact, take out the robotic language to make things more clear. All of those different things are really, really important when you're using an AI copywriter, but absolutely use it for some ideation, for building a framework around writing a blog article, even writing the piece itself. Just make sure you edit.
Yeah. Or I will jump in on that as well. An AI creation tool needs context as much as a human needs context. So if you were to approach your AI tools as if they were a human copywriter and think, for a human copywriter that I was outsourcing to, what information would I need to provide them to create a high quality resultant piece that sounds like me, that incorporates some of the unique perspectives and knowledge that I have? You want to be very mindful about providing all of that context to the tool so that it's not just pulling from existent sources, because that generic content is not going to perform the same way something adding to the conversation will, right? And demonstrates that expertise. So echoing the heavily editing, but also even when you're looking at prompting and that early stage of using AI, be very mindful about the context that you're giving it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kels.
Yeah.
Moving over to the optimization side, you want to check that your pages load quickly on all devices, mobile and desktop. If your page is taking longer than 3 seconds to load, you're losing people. Is your site mobile friendly and accessible? When someone pulls it up on your phone, is it loading appropriately, or are things bleeding over, margins disappear, all of those different things? Is it accessible in terms of someone with a visual disability, something along those lines? Can a audio reader crawl your site? Are headings, titles, and metadata clear and structured? Are you using H1 tags? Are you using H2 tags? Do you have bullets in your blog pieces so that something can easily, a crawl can easily go through that content and make sure that that answer they're looking for is there? And then do you have an internal linking strategy to support SEO? And Kelsey can talk about this a little bit more in a bit. Lori, you had a question.
Well, yes, going back to the credibility check, I'm looking at our website. I mean, we produce news all the time, but it's always by a single person's name. We don't do multimedia journalist or, award-winning, blah, blah, blah. Should we be putting that after the end of each of their names? Or do they go, oh, that name, they go to LinkedIn, it looks to see, oh yeah, they're an independent journalist, or they're a journalist that works for local news account?
Yeah, I would recommend having somewhere on your site the actual bio
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily need to be visible on every single page, but if you're linking to that bio with the name, that will support building that context more quickly and effectively in search, as well as for people.
So if we're putting in the description of this story about, and it's by Sadie Smith, I need to link Sadie Smith to her bio on the same website or on a different page on the website?
That would be ideal. Yeah, you don't need to do that necessarily, but that makes it easier and more clear to identify the expertise of that person and the relationship that expertise has to the content being presented, right? So again, it's like connecting the dots. So you don't need to, but if you want to get that 1% higher effectiveness, that would be a tactic that you could use without necessarily having like a paragraph or even a few sentences on every single news piece that you have on your website. You could link to that person's bio somewhere else on the site.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, let's skip to the next slide. I know we're getting a little close on time and I want to have a little bit more room for questions here. So moving into elevating your experts. So this is that bringing something to the conversation beyond generic content. And so if you really want to build that authority in this AI-driven search landscape, you want to figure out what first-party data, what piece of information that you have in your business that someone else outside doesn't necessarily have to share, that you can pull together into a form of content that you can put on your website that will add to that conversation. Now, this can look like so many different things. This could be case studies. This could be insights about your geography or region because of research that you've done. This could be a year in review report that you publish on your site. There's so many different ways that you can elevate your internal experts. The big thing is, again, avoiding that generic information and seeing what you have that is unique to your business that you can share. Playbooks or frameworks, it could be some tool that you are using to do the work that you do, to offer your services. It could be an interview with another expert in the industry where you are giving them a platform to share their expertise if you don't feel comfortable sharing your own. There's so many different ways to elevate those experts that can help really get that message out there and help you rank higher in those search engine rankings. The big thing is use your expertise, share that across your platform, and make it a long form piece of content, whether that's text or video. We prefer text for this if possible, because it's easy to be crawled, but video and things are, of course, becoming more and more used for search, so you don't have to avoid that. But we do recommend starting with that long form text piece of information. Then, once you have that long form article or piece of content, make that content work harder. So once you've built that one big impactful piece of content, then break that down into the rest of your digital ecosystem. So that could be short videos, that could be a blog post based off of a piece of that longer report, that could be a newsletter, that could be social media posts. You can break that one big piece of content down into all of these little bite-sized pieces of information and continue to share that across your digital ecosystem. That's going to help build that web that points back to your website over and over and over again. What I recommend, and this is not a scientific fact, it's just making this a little bit more achievable, is start with one big lift content piece, a long interview, a longer article. Do one of those per quarter, and then break that down into all of these pieces that are going to fuel the rest of your content engine. If that seems really easy, do more. More is great, but start there and see the impact that has, and then build. Oh, we have one more person joining late. This goes into feeding into that whole digital ecosystem, because what we're starting to find is people are not just searching through Google anymore. They are searching through all of these other sources. They are searching for information right in ChatGPT. They are searching for information on social media. They are going to forums like Reddit. All of these different places, they are searching for information. And so you can't just focus on information content for your website anymore. You need to think about the whole ecosystem. Search engine optimization should be thought of as search everywhere optimization. That entire ecosystem is so, so important. EEAT is this reflection of how humans make decisions. It's a strategy that works across the ecosystem. It's not just for your website, even though we're talking about rankings for your website, for getting people back to your information hub, your website. To be more visible, you need to think about how you're going to optimize for all of those platforms. So making sure your social media bios are having good descriptions of what you do and how you do it. You're demonstrating your expertise in those social media posts. When you're going to online forums, you're being transparent and citing sources when you are putting information in a forum post on Reddit. All of these things are going to help signal that authority and, again, support your SEO. Okay, I'm going to hand it back over to Kelsey for the technical side. This is where I don't enjoy.
I'm just going to go over this very quickly because, as you remember from the hierarchy of needs, the technical SEO is higher to the top, but it is something that can be handed off. You can find SEO optimization services. We offer one to kind of tackle some of these technical needs, but speaking to your site speed and your core web vitals are very important. That includes accessibility. Mobile optimization, like Kate mentioned, super important to not penalize your rankings and your authority through search engines, making sure that your metadata and headings are structured and content and contextful, that you have internal linking and navigation on your website that connects these different pieces of content, that you have your XML sitemaps and indexing covered through Google and any other search engines that are important to your audience. And then schema markup is the cherry on top, which again is that kind of code-based cues within your content that can help build context behind the scenes. I think for recipe results that you see that pop up, if you look for a recipe on Google, it has the time cook, the number of servings, the star rating right there in the search results. That's all driven by schema markup, just as an example. So making sure that your performance is tip top is something else you can think of, and we'd be happy to talk to you about if that would be beneficial to you. Making sure that your site is fast, clean, and easy to crawl. So that's all of that in a nutshell. We covered how AI search is changing SEO and some of the tactics that are shifting around that. We spoke in depth about how to build and present trust and authority so that you can improve your visibility. And then ultimately centering around the importance of creating content for humans and how that is already demonstrating successes for algorithms as well.
Okay, if that feels like a lot to take on and understand, we are offering a workshop on this. It's completely free. It is going to be next Tuesday at 11 a.m. And this is going to be the place where we are happy to sit down and look at your personal website, talk to you about your personal strategies, really dig into your personal needs in terms of AI search. If you want to go to that, all you need to do is type workshop into the chat here, or you can send me an email. We'll send you a personal invite to that workshop, and we will sit down with you for an hour and really dig into all of the different pieces of AI overview and search engine optimization, EEAT, all of those different pieces. We would love for each of you to come and join us for that. With these few minutes remaining, we'd be really, really happy to dig into your questions, and we'll stay on as long as we can. So we'll open the floor. Feel free to unmute yourself.
maybe maybe I missed it. I wasn't sure, but so like for example, the testimonials on my website are JPEGs. Is that getting crawled the same way as text? Do I need to have both? Yada yada.
Yeah, that is crawled very differently than text. If you are putting the testimonial into your alt text of the image, which if you're not, you definitely should, that still then is crawled. So you could use the alt text as that alternative. I would be very cautious to ensure that those are also mobile friendly. If those testimonials are hard to read in JPEG form on a phone browser, might benefit putting that as text so it resizes. Yeah, great question. Any other questions? Wit has a fabulous question. If clicks are not going to be the proof of success as much as before, how can we evaluate success? That's awesome. So when we are looking at success of a business and achievement of goals, we are measuring the things that lead up to the ideal outcome. So if you are, in your case, right, with a Goalix assessment generator, you're wanting subscribers to your assessment tool. And that is a great outcome for you if someone subscribes or if they start a free trial, right? So you're looking at those end results and what are the things that produce a subscription. What we are seeing is the visibility of your brand and the presence of your brand in many spaces contributes to branded searches. So actually typing in a Goalix to go to your website with intent to purchase. So the multiple touch points that occur before connecting to your page or responding to an ad or actually taking that step to find you is supported by seeing your brand and hearing your voice many times. And I think the average, as cited by Neil Patel, is like 11.1 touch points before someone is ready to make a purchase. So if you are coming up in ChatGPT, you're coming up in AI search, you're coming up in YouTube videos and these different spaces while questions are being answered and conversations are being had in your audience's space, that then leads to that purchase intent and that trust, right? What we are actually, shockingly enough, looking at more right now is the impressions. So where impressions were largely vanity metrics in the past, we are seeing how, okay, if we are getting in front of people more and that perhaps there is that engagement time as another figure, that the engagement time is longer, that drives a connection, a mental connection and a note. So looking at those things. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then I think the question is, it's like, what are the other steps that occur for someone leading up to a purchase and how can those be measured?
And then John Horst asked, what metrics should you look at in Google Analytics? I mean, we just talked about impressions a little bit. Is there anything else you want to add on that, Kelsey?
Yeah, so impressions can be seen in Google Search Console. So if you set up Google Search Console for your website, that'll kind of show you the trends on where you're coming up in Google searches, how many searches you're coming up in, what queries your content is being served in. So that's a good tool to have to look at your SEO success, and that's free. So I'd recommend that. On Google Analytics, Google Analytics actually speaks to the activity on your website. So that's after someone lands on your website and clicks through. If you are wanting to identify if people are engaged with your content, then I would look at the engagement time and the sessions, the page views per session, because the indication of someone being interested in your content is that they're going to more than one page or they're actually staying on the page with it open on their screen a longer time. And if that's not happening, then likely your content needs to be shifted to retain that engagement. But if you want to talk a little bit more about metrics specific to what you're wanting to measure, I'm happy to nerd out about that anytime, John.
One more question on here. Oh, a couple more questions on here. Do you know if, oh, it keeps jumping. Do you know if you get dinged for publishing the same content on your website and as a LinkedIn article? My audience is on LinkedIn, so it's important I have a presence there.
No, in fact, publishing your content on LinkedIn, especially as a newsletter, a LinkedIn newsletter, has certain SEO advantages. LinkedIn's search results, their authority is already quite established with search engines. So you can piggyback on that authority by publishing some of your content on LinkedIn, make it a little bit more searchable, make it more findable. Also in LinkedIn, there's some evidence that links are getting penalized by the algorithm. So if you want your blog to be more easily visible without hurting your visibility in LinkedIn with a link, publish it on LinkedIn. Yeah, there should not be a penalty on that. You will, of course, want to just have a little citation originally published on our website for people to understand, human beings to understand that they can find their content on your website. Yeah, great question, Lindsay.
Perfect. And I think this will probably be our last question of the day. Celeste is asking, are there differences or specific considerations for Google Search AI Overview versus the content that is pulled into an LLM, think ChatGPT or Perplexity search?
There will be. Right now, the best we can do is kind of reverse engineer the results we're finding and make assumptions about how LLMs are working, how AI Overview is working. Obviously, all of those algorithms are either extremely proprietary or even the designers don't understand them themselves because they are an artificial intelligence thinking very non-linearly at this point. So in terms of the differences, it is hard to say, and we will be finding out more as more research is done. What I would say for practical purposes right now, I would take the same query that you think your audience is using and put it in Google and see what is cited by the AI Overview, and then go and put it in ChatGPT and actually see what is being cited by ChatGPT. And that is a good no-nonsense approach to seeing what sources are being identified and utilized by different technology. And then you can kind of get a sense for what you might want to contribute to that conversation to try and win there.
Wonderful. Well, we are at time, everybody. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. If you do want to attend that workshop, put workshop in the chat. We'll send you an invite to that. If you did want to talk to us one-on-one, you can absolutely go and visit our website, psychedigital.com, and you'll see a button for a free Ignite call. That is a way to get time on my calendar directly, and I'd be happy to talk to you one-on-one there. Thanks, everybody, so much for joining us.
Thank you all. So good to see you. Thank you.
You guys have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.